Sufficiency without applause. When you're never enough, rehearsals are endless. By Peak Afflatus. Sometimes you are simply never enough. I spent one night listening to glass shatter during a recent storm. I lay there in a pragmatic, full-body sigh, knowing I would spend the week plucking horticultural shards from the lawn after my greenhouse spat its panes across the property. It was not the first time, but it was the most damage. After a day dislodging glass from nearby trees and assessing the wounded frame, I began collecting spare panes over the following days from others in the community. They were clearing space for new kits. I was cobbling together whatever I could to make the structure functional again. I ordered wire cables and turnbuckles and started shoring up the internals after the original diagonals had bent and stretched beyond use. To my surprise, I did some competent structural engineering. The frame had never been so stable. Then came the patchwork glazing, a mixture of tempered panes and hand-cut horticultural glass, fitted to make up for what was missing. You would think I would have felt satisfied, especially with my partner's glowing response. Instead, I spent the entire time muttering that it was a botch job, that it would never be good enough, and hearing my father's voice listing its shortcomings before he had even seen it. He did not disappoint. After showing him the finished result, I received a catalogue of suggestions querying my choices and what still needed doing. Bearing in mind he has never owned a greenhouse, he is an expert at everything. A black belt systematizer who, ironically, cannot get things done because of his need for perfection. I grew up translating this as personal inadequacy, as never being enough. It made me resist my own pull toward perfection and instead learn by doing just enough to get by. I attempt things I know nothing about, learn on the job, and get them done, while carrying a low ache for all the imperfections. My father once completed his day skipper course in middle age. He is now in his mid-80s and has never owned a boat. He even gets seasick and cannot enjoy other people's boats. So imagine his surprise when I bought a powerboat and began skippering it through some of the largest tides in the world with the most daunting navigation. Of course, he had instructions, safety briefings, lists of risks, warnings about money pits and maintenance sinkholes. When the engine failed, I replaced it myself. A reckless blend of ignorance and arrogance. I sent him photos and videos of the boat running again, and received more critique from someone whose mechanical experience extended no further than an oil change. These comments often arrive after the fact, as if the job being finished does not register. The results speak for themselves, but the instruction continues. The examples are endless. I travel and he tells me how to pack a bag. I build furniture and he tells me where to add more screws. I hike on the far side of the world and receive messages saying I am going the wrong way. When I explain that mountains are not straight lines, he argues, is proven wrong, and blames the map. It matters to say this. The man means no harm. He is helpful to a fault. But when you spend your life being corrected in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, you learn a lesson you would rather not, that no version of your effort will ever be enough. So why try to make it perfect? When recognition is impossible, perfection collapses. Not because the work is poor, but because nothing is ever allowed to feel finished. Even completion invites correction. What remains is sufficiency as autonomy, a private discipline of doing things well enough to live, rather than well enough to be approved. I now know the script before it plays out, and I still take my seat in the front row. It is the only way he can share in my life. We cannot speak about feelings, relationships, philosophy, or dreams. He lives in facts and figures, in a world where everything could be improved if only everyone thought like him. Shudderingly familiar. I have chosen done over perfect. I collect his critiques like accolades, because it means the foreman has arrived after the job is finished, and it is too late to change anything. What is strange to watch in myself is that I still long for perfection. I once imagined that when I finally settled somewhere permanent, things would be done properly. That ownership would earn me the right to care deeply. Because I have always lived transiently, I excused my efforts as temporary. These things were passing through my life, not living with it. They did not need to last forever. I watch the stress my father carries when bad weather threatens his manicured garden and feel relief that I do not give my efforts that weight. I often say this is why I do not have nice things. I do not want to become someone who grieves a scratch in paintwork or a dog claw through fabric. I have learned that competence is not permitted in his presence. I will always be the apprentice. I cannot help him without oversight. It fires me up less now. What remains is a soft, persistent sadness. That same overbearing monologue now lives inside me, and it is the very thing that pushes me to gather experience for myself. It is also the thing that makes me sound as though I am picking faults or claiming to know better, not from negativity but from risk, from caution, from having learned to look for what might go wrong. One day I will miss him deeply, and he will never be far away, permanently internalized as the voice of correction and restraint. I have refused perfection in my life. I lower the bar deliberately. If I aim too high, it would hurt. Better to arrive with gas in the tank and be criticized, knowing the blow will not land where it matters. I know my father is proud. I know he lives through me. That is why I continue to share what I do, despite the psychological inflammation it causes. There is no version of my work that would ever be enough for him. So I stopped trying to be flawless and learned to be sufficient. I learned to build without applause. In a world that does not care much what we do, I have one witness who cares too much, and when that voice finally falls silent, I will have to become my own. You have been listening to Perfectionism.